I'm Tyler, and I'm here to tell you the story of one man's journey to be the very best, like no one ever was. Now, this man would tell you himself, but he doesn't have a mic, so he hired me. Actually, he hired someone else to voice me because I'm just a bunch of pixels with no will of my own, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started on Esco's Pokemon Brilliant Diamond experience. We start with Esco and his best friend Barry going to Lake Verity to catch a Gyarados, but they end up attacked by some wild Starlies. So they decide to use Pokemon that some professor left behind, and out pops a Piplup, who he later named Claude. While Esco was thinking about the team he wanted to build because Cynthia is terrifying, he stumbled across a Badoo, joyfully sucking the life out of her victims. After promising her the chance to quench her bloodlust, Esco caught Badoo, nicknaming her Bernadetta. From there, they headed to Orberg City and took out Rourke, who was literally no challenge. And with that, our ragtag team of heroes nabbed their first badge. During this time, Esco traded over a Buneary, Murkrow, Ralts, and a Pichu egg to his team. Now, since he had the first badge, our protagonist foolishly assumed that the traded Pokemon would listen to him. But he was wrong. You see, he tried using Buneary, and he just wouldn't listen to him at all. There was even one time where he attacked Dawn's Chimchar during a confrontation with Team Galactic, and that totally wasn't because of Joy-Con drift. Unfortunately, that caused Dawn to begin cursing Esco for the rest of her days. Esco then decided to research why Buneary wasn't listening to him, and realized he needed 2 badges to command traded Pokemon, which is a problem because half of his Pokemon are traded. I mean, Pichu, now named Lynn, is also traded, but she was an egg, which made her his. Unfortunately, she was extremely weak at that point, so Claude, who had recently evolved, had to be the big brother he was and take on a lot of the trainers, from Flamora Town to Eterna City, with some assistance from Bernadetta. After making their way through Eterna Forest, Esco made it to the underground, where he found a Murkrow, Buneary, and a Ralts. The Murkrow and Buneary, respectively named Hubert and Merida, were immediately put on the team. Esco thought about using the Ralts he caught, but he decided against it and kept the traded Ralts, whom he nicknamed Ike. After defeating the second gym with Hubert and acquiring the second badge, Lynn, Bernadetta, and Ike evolved. He then decided to use Merida because she knew Thunder Punch, and so that she could evolve. Anyway, when they went to the third gym, Esco thought using Hubert again would be a viable strategy. Did it work? Well, up until he faced Maylene's Lucario, everything was smooth sailing. You see, Lucario had Drain Punch and could easily one-shot any of Esco's Pokemon, which he did several times. Esco sent out Hubert on the first try, who died immediately. Claude was easily put down, Merida was outsped, Bernadetta's Bloodlust couldn't outmatch Lucario's, Ike was brutally crushed, and Lynn was... well, you get the picture. After several defeats, Esco decided to do something he never thought he'd have to do. Strategize. He taught Ice Beam to Claude so that he'd potentially be able to freeze Lucario. So with a somewhat half-baked plan, Esco stepped up to face Maylene once more. Hubert took out her Meditite like always, and Ike handled Machoke by spamming Psybeam while also barely surviving himself. Next up was Claude to take on Lucario. Like all the other times, Claude was outsped, but when Lucario used Drain Punch, Claude was still standing. Realizing that Claude doesn't get one-shotted, Esco then decided to heal spam until Lucario ran out of PP for Drain Punch. Unfortunately, on the 9th one, Lucario managed to pull off a crit and Claude was downed. Hubert came out next and wing attacked him, but since Lucario two-shotted him with Metal Claw, Esco made the tough decision to let him pull off one last wing attack before being taken down himself. Finally, Lynn stepped up to finish off Lucario. Afterwards, Esco left the gym with a badge in his hands while also cursing Maylene's name for the rest of his days. It's a good thing this wasn't a Nuzlocke, because otherwise this run would have practically been over. Esco then headed to the 4th gym, which was a cakewalk. Lynn, Bernadetta, and a now-evolved Merida dominated Crasher Wake, and the 5th gym was no different. Ike and Hubert secured Esco's victory over Fantina, which allowed him to head for the 6th gym, which was also a cakewalk. Afterwards, Esco evolved Hubert and Bernadetta, and managed to secure the 7th gym badge. Then Esco headed to their HQ in Veilstone, beat up Cyrus, took his Master Ball, and freed the 3-Lake Pokemon. After climbing Mount Coronet and fighting Cyrus one last time, Esco stared down Dialga and chucked the Master Ball, 'cause why not? Anyway, after Bernadetta and Lynn handled the 8th gym, Esco headed to the Pokemon League. Oh, and don't worry, he managed to evolve Ike before heading in. Now this league, and especially Cynthia, are pretty challenging, but Esco had a pretty stacked lineup. So with a team like that, how on earth could Esco lose? First up was Aaron, who Hubert and Lynn demolished with ease. Next was Bertha, who Bernadetta single-handedly destroyed. Flint was a combined effort from Claude, Ike, and Lynn, but with Lucien, Lynn and Hubert took care of that mess. Now it was time for Cynthia, one of, if not the strongest Pokemon trainers to ever walk the earth. She's able to send a chill down most people's spines. In fact, just mentioning her makes people have flashbacks to when they tangoed with her. Ugh. I remember when I faced her myself when I first got the game. That was brutal. Her team was stacked, but then so was Esco, and there was no way in heck he'd lose. He ended up losing a couple of times. Now, her Pokemon were pretty easy to handle, but Garchomp was a different story. He managed to one-shot Claude with Earthquake, and on other attempts it was Lucario who was tripping Esco up, and immediately flashbacks to Maylene came to mind. So once again, Esco decided to strategize. Hubert took out Spiritomb by spamming Fly, and Bernadetta handled her Gastrodon and Melodic pretty well. Next up was Roserade, and after realizing Bernadetta gets outsped and two-shot by Sludge Bomb, Bernie pulled off one last attack before finally going down. Marita came out and took care of the Roserade, but then came Lucario, a grim reminder of the team's past encounter with another of his kind. Back then, I couldn't survive a hit from a monster like him, but that was then and this is now. It took some difficulty, but Ike finally brought down Lucario, only leaving Garchomp. Once again, Claude stepped up to the plate, but Esco had a plan. During his journey, he came across an X defense, which he completely forgot about up until now. Whoops. Well, this was the last battle, so Esco gave Claude the X defense, which allowed him to tank Garchomp's Earthquakes. During the time Claude was getting beaten to heck and back, Esco relied on heal spamming once more. As the PP for Earthquake ran out, that was the moment Claude seized the opportunity and took out Garchomp. It was over. Esco defeated Cynthia, and what an experience it was. Together with his team, Esco managed to become the Sinnoh champion. And what better way to secure the victory than with the Pokemon he started his journey with, literally 9 days ago at the time. Yeah, it was a grand Pokemon adventure, and probably the last one Esco would go on. Or was it?